Hello, FPL managers. Welcome to the FPL Optimized podcast. This is episode number 59. Welcome back and thanks for listening again. I am Bas, the casual manager, and my co host is Sertalp, the data scientist. This is the podcast in which we combine analytics with the good old eye test. Data or grass, or data and grass? That's the question. I was away last week, and no, it wasn't a holiday this time, but it was business. And Sertalp, thanks for still covering it. You had a great chat with FPL Chase. I really enjoyed listening to it, and I hope all of our listeners did so too. And today we're back with a regular episode to prepare for Game Week 7. But before doing that, we'll look back at how Game Week 6 went for us. Sertalp, our head-to-head score was 4-1 to my advantage. So
Yeah.
now let's take a look at our Game Week 6 scores and tell us how it went for you.
Well, we
Good.
both had a good game week in general. I finished with 76 points. You finished with 85 points, which, brings the score to 5-1, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And my mid-game week rank was much better than my final game week rank. And so I was feeling pretty good towards the middle of the game week. And then towards the end, I again went back to my usual self. Why am I playing this game? It's just ruining my weekends. Maybe I should stop playing. Even though I got a green arrow, it didn't feel like it. It felt like a big red arrow. So,
Okay.
and also the fact that you were, I was leading our head-to-head competition, and you probably felt the pressure that, Newcastle needs to get a clean sheet or I'm going to lose a game week to Sertalp. And then they just did the unimaginable, and not only they kept a clean sheet, but also they trashed. So I was like, damn, these kind of good stuff always happen to Bas, not me. So I was feeling pretty down. How was your game week? Okay, I need to
Well, this
ask it.
season is different than other seasons. So this season is going a bit more in my favor, it seems.
Yeah.
But I was a bit surprised because I think it depended a lot on the Newcastle game, and maybe I took more the analytics approach. It seems because I think the optimized team had 3 Newcastle defenders, if I remember correctly,
That's
and
correct.
I had 2, and I was surprised that you had 0. So I think this game week it helped me. But no, overall, 85 points. So decent, I would say. Actually, quite good. Was happy with it. Game week rank of approximately 1.2 million. And it was a high scoring game week. There was a lot of high scores. And even though I didn't have some of the top scorers like Son or Trippier, I luckily still had plenty of other players who did the business. And highlight of the week for me was Mitoma, which was a bit of a roller coaster. And basically, that's what FPL is all about, right? You think you're in a bad position. Mitoma was on the bench, and then suddenly he comes on and he scores 2 goals, and he's the hero of the week.
Yeah.
So that was really nice. Mitoma, 14 points for him, 14. So that was pretty good. And I had Saka with 13 points, but of course, a lot of people had him. Bruno with 10, which was also quite nice. And then Botman with 12. Last week he had 9, now again 12. So that's doing really well. He's doing really well in the team. And next to that, some good scores from Onana, Estupinen, and Shar. And I made 2 transfers last week. I sold Martinelli because he was injured. I took Mbeumo because I thought the fixtures looked quite good, but unfortunately he didn't do much yet. Just 1 point from him. And Chilwell went out for Share. I lost the confidence in Chilwell. I was proven right, at least for that game week. And Shar at Newcastle gave me 6 points. Not perfect, looking at some of the points that other Newcastle players had. And also for me, I was considering most of the week to go for Trippier. But then I decided to save some cash, as I thought that on the longer term, that can allow me to upgrade to Salah in the midfield in one of the next game weeks without having to wildcard. So I'm still quite happy with that approach. I think it puts me in a good position for the next weeks. But of course, it would have been nice also to have the extra Trippier points. But okay, that's how it goes. And overall, for the two of us, I think a decent game week. So that's nice. I'm happy with the 5-1 head-to-head score. So that puts me in a nice position. But of course, the season is still quite long. But we're in a good position to build from here. Okay, so let's move on. And the first thing we'll do, as usual, is we'll take a look at how the model performed, or the models, I should say.
Yeah, for sure. Again, this analysis and the visualization that we share is generated by NeilRankinZA on Twitter. I will say Twitter. I don't want to use X. Twitter.
Okay, yeah. Let's do it.
Everyone knows what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Projection model accuracy based on outcome, FPL review is still leading, as it was the case last game week. And again, we are looking from game week 1 up to game week 6. So everything is included here. And FPL review is number 1. Fantasy Football Scout is at number 2. Fantasy Football Hub is at number 3. And then we have Mikael Tokbaum's transfer algorithm. Fantasy Football Fix, Draft Hound, and FPL team is at the last place. These are based on the outcome. As you see, there are usually like slight changes from game week to game week, but now we are kind of like converging to a place, I feel like. And based on underlyings, FPL review is still at number 1 position, but we have Fantasy Football Hub in 2nd position based on underlying data, and then Fantasy Football Scout, then comes Mikael Tokbaum's transfer algorithm, then Draft Hound, then Fantasy Football Fix, and FPL team. And we also have been asked whether, like, if we provide these reports based on long-term projections, because as you see here, we are using the game week projection from just before the deadline and using only that one. That's good, obviously, for game week to game week decisions, but when we actually use our wildcard, we are using a long-term projection data, like even like transferring players, but especially more relevant when you are creating your game week 1 team and also your wildcard team. So we don't have anything for this game week yet, but whenever we have a chance, we will try to have a look at the longer-term projections, you know, how it was, if the models predicted it correctly for the long term, or is the model is good because they were able to adjust it quickly, because it's sometimes it's the case. Models sometimes react very strongly when something happens, like for example, let's say Son playing in a better position in the field so that his projections go up. But it wasn't the case when we were looking at the game week 1, when we were building our team, for example, so that you are actually in a bad shape if you look from that perspective. But yeah, that's something we will discuss in future episodes.
Okay, noted. And since you've been tracking this now for some weeks, is there already any conclusions you're taking out of it?
Not too many conclusions. I mean, we knew that FPL review is one of the most accurate models out there based on previous seasons' data, but we never had a numerical, I should say, we never had an experiment with every model included. We were kind of using some partial data, because sometimes, grabbing this data is not the easiest. Not every website actually offers a way to download it. But we were able to write a script that works pretty nicely. So it is good to see that what we have been thinking is actually proven to be correct. I mean, 6 game weeks, again, maybe it's a small sample size. But yeah, one thing that I am actually a little bit surprised is, so we didn't have a good understanding of how good or bad some of the models are. I mean, if you ask me at the beginning of the season how good, let's say, Hub's model or Scott's model or Fantasy Football Fix model, like which one would perform better, I didn't have an answer. So we are kind of seeing that their model is also doing better, and compared to some of the partial tests we had last season, I mean, they are doing much better. I also showed this one, I think, in a previous episode. Some models seem to be performing much more accurate for certain positions. But yeah, again, this is something that we need to spend a little bit more time to actually make sure before we share anything on that. But
Got it.
These are my
But I'm sure
observations.
the analytics community is appreciating the work you're doing.
Yeah. For the ensemble data, for example, for our custom ensemble, we are using these top four models like FPL Review Hub, Scott, and FPL Talk Bombs. And I'm using an equal weight to all four of them when I'm sharing the optimal wildcard team right now. Because I think that their accuracy is one step ahead of other remaining three. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Good to know. Thanks for covering that again. All right, so let's move to our fixture ticker. As every week, we'll be looking at the best and worst teams for the next couple of weeks based on their offensive and defensive ratings.
Yeah, in the first place, we have Liverpool.
Oh, okay, that's good.
So City lost the top place to Liverpool because City has the Chelsea game coming in game week 12. So when it is added to the horizon, I mean, well, we might discuss if the Chelsea fixture is an easy one or a difficult one. But at least for models think that it is harder than usual. But Liverpool has a very favorable fixture, they have favorable fixtures in this horizon. Not this game week, though. I will talk about it. Let me go over the order first in terms of from best to worst. In terms of the fixture quality. We have Liverpool in the first place. As I mentioned, we have Manchester City in the second place. Arsenal is number 3. Then we have Newcastle, Tottenham, Manchester United, Aston Villa, Brighton, West Ham, and Chelsea. Well, for this game week only, we have 3 very favorable fixtures. The first one is Manchester City is playing against Wolves. It is both defensively and offensively a good fixture with 4.4 point average for defensive players and 5.3 for midfield and forwards. And Arsenal is playing against Bournemouth. That's also a favorable fixture. And then Newcastle is playing against Burnley. So all of these 3 fixtures are good, both defensively and offensively. So these are the top 3 games that you can kind of focus on. Obviously, we also have a double game week. We will talk about it. But if we are focusing on how good or bad the fixtures are, these 3 are the best.
Okay, yeah.
And Liverpool is at number 1 place because their game week 9, 10, and 11 fixtures are really good. So they are playing against Everton at home, Nottingham Forest at home, and then Luton Town away. So the projected points for those 3 game weeks are 4.4, 4.6, 4.4 for defenders, and 5.5, 5.6, and 5.2 for offensive players, which is pretty significant. So, and then they have the Brentford game where the offensive point average is 5.1. So very favorable fixtures. But this game week they are playing against Tottenham. So if you have been thinking of maybe switching to Liverpool, obviously this is not the game week to do so. Maybe not even game week 8, but I know that lots of people are considering to wildcard either in game week 8 or 9. So you must have a Liverpool player or 2, in my opinion. So people have been discussing about maybe skipping Salah and then using that money for some other players. But in my opinion, I mean, models are pretty sure that they are okay offensively, and these fixtures are good. But what do you think?
Yeah, basically, I think it has been the strategy from game week 1 to kind of ignore Salah because of the high price, and because there are so many options in midfield. And also, I think because we had some doubts about the Liverpool strength based on how they ended last season. But I think for a big part, they have proven us wrong. I think especially Salah has been very consistent this season, delivering every week. You could argue, is it sufficient to justify his price point? But at least it's he has been very consistent. And now, especially with the fixtures coming up, as you just mentioned, and I think even game week 7 against Tottenham, Tottenham, and they have a good team, but especially attacking. I think defensively they have conceded quite a lot. That also by the way they play now, they go kind of all out on attack, and they don't mind to concede 1 or 2 goals as long as they score more to win the game.
Yeah.
So I think that's why a lot of people are talking about Salah, indeed, especially for their wildcard teams. And that's also why I mentioned that I went for Schär, because I would just think instead of Trippier, because I was just thinking I need to save some budget somewhere, because if I want to upgrade to Salah without wildcarding, then you probably need to start preparing for that.
Yeah, I appreciate your forward thinking, this long-term planning.
Yeah,
You don't sound like a casual anymore, so
no,
you're an
every year
engaged
I try
manager.
to improve. Every year I try to improve. Yeah. So no, that's good. It's good to see that also in your chart, Liverpool is number 1. We'll come back to it later, because one of the decisions I need to make this week is I need to get a new attacker instead of Jackson, and Darwin is one of the options. So that's something we can talk about later. And City is a number 2, so they dropped, as you said, and I think they might drop even a bit further next week, because they play Wolves now,
Yeah, that's the
but
only
after
reason.
that they play Arsenal, Brighton, Man United, and then a bit later Chelsea and Liverpool. So they have quite a tough run of fixtures coming up.
Yeah,
And I think there's even a discussion going on about between some people that they think they can go
dropping.
without Haaland,
Hmm.
which personally I will not do, but that's another
Yeah,
consideration.
I think we were talking about it earlier too, because some of the wildcard teams, I think they were kind of like dropping
Yeah,
Haaland towards the end of
yeah,
this horizon. And then we were
yeah.
discussing if Haaland will become, or I should say, stay optimal when we are
Right.
solving the problem with transfers enabled. We will see. I mean, we are almost there. After this game week, we should have a better idea. And also for
Yeah,
people who are wildcarding, I mean, most people will keep Haaland. Let's be real. But I think it
yeah.
is a good strategy to drop him, probably.
And I was listening to the FPL Wire this morning, so shout out to those guys. They create excellent content, and they did some analysis based on last season, and they compared Haaland, versus, let's say, the weaker teams and the stronger teams, and especially the teams that City will be facing now. And based on underlyings, it's not so different. Haaland is very consistent, so just based on fixtures, yeah, it's really risky to sell Haaland, I would say. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you want to do it, this is probably the moment. Especially the reward can be high, of course, right? If you want to really win FPL, this is probably what you should try to do. Be different than the rest, but it is risky.
Yeah. And also one thing I want to add here is, I mean, this kind of like numerical analysis is nice because it also helps you to understand, how good are the bad fixtures in a much better sense. Yes, City is playing against Arsenal, Manchester United, and Chelsea in this horizon, and all at away. But their Bournemouth game is so good. I mean, their offensive average is 6.0, so that it is
Mm,
like 1.3 points more compared to like the
mm,
game week before or the after almost. And
yeah,
so it is. So even if you are going to skip Holland, so you need to plan what to do for game week 11 because like
yeah,
6.0 is quite high, and we expect Holland to
mm,
score one or two or maybe more goals. So,
yeah,
and everyone will probably own him. I mean, ownership is a little bit of a controversial issue, of obviously, but yes, still, I mean, there's a decent chunk of expected value or projected points, or like for casuals, there's a significant risk for that game week to skip Haaland. So you need to make sure that with Haaland's money, you are able to get the same or maybe higher
right,
projected points, or have a better have
yeah,
players who have better vibes for game week 11, I should say.
yeah. Yeah, and I guess the idea that people have is then to go for Salah, right?
Hmm.
If you save on Haaland, it makes it easier to go for Salah. It's quite difficult to
Hmm.
fit in both Salah and Haaland, but of course, I think that's something we'll try to do. But then you'll have to, of course, make sacrifices elsewhere.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
yeah, okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks for covering this. So these are
Hmm.
the top teams. So let's also maybe look at the worst teams.
Worst teams, we have Sheffield United topping this chart, and then we
Yeah,
have Luton Town, Wolves, Fulham, Burnley, Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, Everton, Brentford, and Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
For this game week, 3 fixtures that are tough, especially difficult, are Sheffield United is playing against West Ham. Offensively, it is only 3.4 point average, makes it to our bottom 10 percentile. And then Wolves playing against Manchester City, both for defense players and also offense players. It is not the best. I mean, it's 2.3 for defense players and 3.3 point average for offense players. Mm-hmm. And the third fixture that is not favorable is Crystal Palace against Manchester United. For some reason, models think that offensively it is not a good fixture, only 3.4 point average. So, well, yeah, I don't know actually about that, but I mean, obviously it is not a good fixture in general, but Manchester United doesn't
plays
give
at home.
too much confidence.
I think typically Man United is doing better at home, Old Trafford.
Maybe that's it.
And I think Crystal Palace so far they haven't been scoring too many goals.
I see.
I'm just saying that at the top of my head. Also with the last game in mind, and I think a lot of people have NeilRankinZA, and he hasn't done too much yet. Can understand. But of course, Crystal Palace is a tough team to beat, so I don't think it will be easy for United, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I need to mention here is when I was preparing this chart this morning, I realized that we have Luton Town in the second place, worst team list, and then we have Burnley in the 5th place, but they have a double game week, so it seemed a little bit strange to me. And if I understood correctly, I have a kind of like a bug for these double game weeks when I am dividing this projected points to minutes. So they are not the most reliable right now. I need to check what's going on. I didn't have time to actually fix the issue. But again, I mean, so I hope not much harm is done with this problem because it's Luton and Burnley. But we will talk about Luton.
But I think actually that it is a good point because people are going for Luton maybe for the double game week. So to your point, maybe you think it's not that bad. Let's go for the double game week. But I think I need to have a longer horizon in mind. Of course, if you will wildcard later or soon, then it's not really an issue. But looking at your chart here, game week 10, 11, 12. They face some even very tough fixtures, and even game week 8 also Tottenham. So keep that in mind, I would say. Yeah. Okay. Anything else from this chart?
No, that was everything.
Cool. Okay. Thanks a lot. So this was really useful again. So I think it also gives an idea of the main teams we should be looking at for our transfers. Next up, as every week, let's look at some of the individual players whose EV either gained or dropped the most.
Yeah, sure. So this analysis is generated by FPL Chase, and what we are looking here is how much the expected values have changed from last deadline to right now. How much expected value players gained, because as we mentioned before, expected value changes constantly based on the news. And so we have Raya topping this chart with 2.63 points increase for the next 6 game weeks. Obviously, now that Raya seems to be the primary goalkeeper for Arsenal, so his minutes increased and his expected value increased as well. And then in the second rank, we have Wilson from Newcastle. And we have Darwin, Liverpool, at the 3rd place. Then we have Gordon, Sojak, Disasi, Willian, Welbeck, Foden, and Bowen. Most of these are related to expected minute changes. Like we are expecting them to play more, especially in Darwin's case. You will see that in top losses table. Actually, we will see both Gakpo and Jota, so that it kind of explains why Darwin is increasing, because the other 2 is decreasing in expected value.
Right. Yeah. I think the rotation risk is still there, but based on the recent games, it seems that Darwin is getting a bit more minutes again. So I think that that could make us positive about his potential. And I think, yeah, number 4, Gordon of Newcastle, he's been discussed quite a lot also these days on Twitter because Barnes got injured and he will be out for quite some time. And Gordon is quite cheap. I think he's 5.5 million or something like
Oh,
that.
really?
And
Oh,
he
okay.
has been, yeah. Well, let me just verify that, but I think that's what I have in mind. Let me just check it very quickly. I've got the window open here. Gordon, yeah, 5.6.
That's good.
So he's quite cheap. And again, if you have in mind to bring in Salah later, then you need enablers like Gordon, for
That's
example.
true.
And
That's true.
yeah, we've seen how attacking Newcastle is. You could go for one of their attackers, but there is rotation
Everyone
risk.
seems like an attacker. Like
Yeah,
eight people
indeed.
scored.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, people don't dare to choose between Wilson and Isaac. Or you can choose, but there is high risk there. So Gordon looks more secured. So definitely an option.
Yeah, especially his EV increased this game week significantly, 0.5. Yeah, that's very significant. The other game weeks
Yeah.
are a little bit, but especially this game week is a big jump.
Yeah, they play at home against Burnley, and I think
Mm.
as his spot seems to be quite secured, or I think very secured with the Barnes injury. That's probably why his projection went up
Mm-hmm.
so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these are the gainers. Do we also have the losers?
Yeah, we have the losers. So in the uh, top of this list, we have Konate from Liverpool, minus
All right.
2.95. We have then Chilwell. Unfortunately, I have Chilwell
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
1.8 loss over the horizon for the next 6
Okay.
game weeks. Then Ben Rahma, Danjuma,
Yeah.
Richarlison, Berg, Jota, Visa, Gakpo, and Mount.
Okay.
So these are again mostly related to expected minute changes, and
Yeah.
also based on who we think will appear in the starting lineup next game week.
Yeah. 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 Indeed. I think it's very much based on expected minutes. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, especially
Like
now that if you think about Richarlison, I mean, yeah, he,
Richarlison, also Chilwell, of course. Not sure anymore about the spot.
yeah,
Danjuma is an interesting one because I think every time he plays, he looks quite good, but he's still not secure of a spot.
yeah,
And Everton in general, or not in general, but for the next 2 game weeks, I would say, yeah, they play Luton at home and then Bournemouth at home,
yeah,
and they've been improving in performance. So
yeah.
if you want
They
to
were
make
the only team.
any, yeah, I was saying if you want to go for any short-term bets, then I think maybe Everton. But yeah, who to go for? That's a bit tricky. You're not sure if Calvert-Lewin will play or Bento, I think is his name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in the midfield, yeah, I see some people talking about Doucouré, who's now the top scorer for Everton.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's normally not the first name you think of with so many midfield options
true.
in general. But sorry, it's Beto, not Bento. So yeah, one of the attackers there. So yeah, no, Everton. Again, if you're wildcarding, let's say game week 8, game week 9, and you want to go for a short-term punt, as mentioned, Luton and Bournemouth at home the next 2 game weeks. So yeah, that looks pretty promising.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, cool. Really useful data again to consider. And yeah, let's combine all of it and let's look at the optimal team. And probably some people have their wild card activated this week. So the optimal team is a good one to look at.
mm-hmm.
And in general, of course, for
Mm-hmm.
any inspiration for your transfers.
Yeah. Before talking about the optimal wildcard team, I want to talk about who are projected to get the highest points.
Okay,
We shared something similar to
right.
this in past, but let me go
Yes,
over the goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and forwards, and then I will
yep,
show you the optimal wildcard team. That it will make more
perfect.
sense, hopefully.
Yep,
So goalkeepers, it is not like agreed universally across the models, but we have Pope in the first place with 3.1 mean rank. Means that there's lots of variability between the models. So every model has a different favorite probably. And then
Okay.
we have Ederson, then Kaminsky because of the double game week, obviously.
Double game
And
week.
then we have
Yeah.
Onana and Trafford at the 5th place.
Yeah.
In defenders, we have Trippier, 1.1 mean rank, so most models think he's the best defender to own. Then we have Alexander-Arnold, then Char, then Botman, then Cash.
Char. Very good.
Yeah, so you see, triple Newcastle defense, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And in terms of midfielders, we have Salah, Son, Rashford, Saka, and Bruno Fernandes. And Salah's mean rank is 1.0, so every model has him as the best in terms of expected value over the next 6 game weeks. Yeah. And in terms of forwards, we have Haaland, Watkins, Morris, again, because of the double game week. We have Alvarez in 4th place and Ogbene from Luton in the 5th place.
Right.
On using this, we generated our optimal wildcard team. So again, I used a custom-made ensemble model for this. And in the goal, we have Kaminsky, who has a double game week. And his projected points for this game week is 6.9. Okay. And we have, in defense, we have Bayer, Bell, Botman, Trippier. And in midfield, we have Mbeumo, Salah, Fernandes, Son. And in forward, we have Morris and Haaland. And one thing to note here is that Morris is the captain with 7.8 projected points, while Haaland's projected point is 7.7. I will talk about that in a second. Yeah. And in bench, we have Areola, who plays in 4 game weeks for the next 8. And Eze, Cash, and Archer is our bench fodder. So what do you think about this team, Bas?
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised how many Burnley and Luton players the model is selecting. You have basically 4 of them.
Yeah, and Kaminsky is sold after 2 game weeks for flat. Right. But the others, I think they remain in the team. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the case. That seems to be the case. Yeah.
So even if you have a longer horizon in mind, you don't just look at the next game week, but you look, as we usually do, at a longer horizon. It would still pick 3 Luton players and 1 Burnley player. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, Morris plays for the whole horizon here. I mean, model doesn't think he's the best. I mean, his projected points are between 3.2 and 3.8 for the other game weeks, but this game week it's a double game week, and 7.8 is his projection. Kaminsky is, as I mentioned, is sold in 2 game weeks, and then Bell plays only for this game week, and for the remaining game week he's just staying on the bench while Cash is playing. And Eze is the player who plays for the rest of the horizon, not this game week. That's the only game week we skip him. Okay. So model has them, but they're usually waiting on the bench. So again, there are some projected points to gain, some to lose. But one thing we need to remind is that since projected points are more subject to changes in longer term, so when we are solving these wildcard teams, we are giving a higher weight to this immediate game week that we have, so that based on that, these double game week players are, model wants to have them because you are more promised to get, expected value in a shorter term. But, there are other ways to do this. I mean, you can increase your DK to 1 or even maybe higher than 1 if you think that the long-term EV is more important than the EV you gain only this game week. But there are some trade-offs, obviously.
No, I get it. And I think, a lot of people are bringing in at least 1 or maybe even 2 Luton players because they also say they play Burnley and Everton. So then they say, oh, that's not too difficult. But I said it in a tweet today as well. I think actually you should reverse that narrative, because I think Burnley and Everton, they are thinking, we're playing Luton. That's easy, right? Instead of thinking it's easy for Luton, I think it's the other way around. But okay, two games in 1 week, and especially for Morris, who was on penalties, and we've seen him already delivering points. So I think definitely you can take a bet there. yeah, I personally won't do it, but it's an option. And the other thing I wanted to say, just on the previous chart for the midfielders, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where, of course, everybody will have the headache, because we have so many options, and you have here now a team where you have Salah, Bruno, Son, and then also Haaland. But of course, yeah, there is Saka, there is Madison, there is Rashford. Yeah, there are many others who I'm not naming. So I think that will be the challenge. There are so many good options. How to fit them in, and how to prioritize. I think that will be the key question for us the next game weeks.
Yeah, I mean, just to remind everyone that, what's the purpose of generating this optimal wildcard team? I mean, if you are wildcarding, this is the team we feel that you should start working from. Like, you have this team, and then think about, like, what if I downgrade Son to Madison with the extra money? Which player I can upgrade? I mean, obviously, this is because this is the raw optimal team, so that we are just optimizing over the expected value, and this is the highest expected value you can get. You can disagree to some of these picks, and again, you can just decide, like, ban them, or remove from your team and try to find players with the highest expected value in the remaining set of players, and then hopefully you will have a team whose expected value is not too far from this one. But I mean, this is just for a reference.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. No, and I get it. That makes a lot of sense. I'm just saying that it's really difficult now. I think this year
I know
will be
you
more
do.
difficult than other years. Like other years, it was, you went for Salah, you went for Haaland, and then you just added a few players. But now we have so many good players. And I think last game week showed it, right? Kind of almost everybody was delivering. So you really need to pick the right ones.
Yeah.
Okay, you got another chart?
This is again the same team. Actually, it's just showing where the weaknesses of this team are. As you can imagine, this game week it is giving you a loss of expected value. But since we are solving for this 8-game week horizon, some of the picks here that we have are not the best picks over this horizon. Just wanted to mention that, for the long term, you will probably bleed some EV if you don't do any transfers, obviously. But these are the focus areas that you need to, have a look later. I mean, this team, midfield is pretty good. I mean, Mbeumo, Fernandes, Son, Salah, they stay almost until the end of the horizon. And Eze too. I mean, he's a great enabler in this horizon. But defense requires some more planning here. So if you go with this team, for example, so these are some kind of analysis that you need to have a look at. I mean, this team is already scheduling a goalkeeper transfer, and then defenders, their projections don't look too good in the long term. So if you go with this team, be prepared to make more defender and goalkeeper transfers than other positions like midfielder and forwards. So if you think that if you start with this team, it is more likely that you will get stuck with Morris unless you take a hit or decide to bleed EV in defense. But this is something you need to consider, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, got it. All right, thank you for covering that. And do you know already what you will do for your team this week?
I don't. I have 2 free transfers now.
Okay, that's good.
And I am kind of planning to wildcard in game week 9-ish because I hate my team, so I want to have some excitement again. I was planning to keep my wildcard for a longer term, but now I'm thinking maybe game week 9 will be good. And also model says that there might be a significant expected value gain for my team. Maybe around 10 or 14, somewhere in between that range, which seems okay for the expected value gain. And if that's the case, I think I will have a very short-term pick for game week 7 and 8, and then hopefully wildcard in game week 9.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
How about you? Do you have a plan?
Yeah, well, I think
did you do your transfer already?
No. Actually, I was thinking about it yesterday because Jackson was dropping in price, and I'm already quite sure. I'm 100% sure that I will sell him. So I lost 0.1 million, unfortunately. But with the cup game still being played, I was just a little bit worried about any injuries that might come from that. So yeah, I took let's say the loss in value, and yeah, I will wait for information. Basically, I think I'll probably wait until Friday. And for the rest, wildcarding, I'll try to wait for as long as possible. Don't know if that's the right decision, but it feels good to me. But let's see if it works out. And as I mentioned, the main point for me this week will be to sell Jackson. Unfortunately, he didn't do much, despite showing quite good XG numbers, but not delivering. And he picked up another yellow card, so I think that's just a clear sell. And yeah, I'm thinking of a few options. I like Watkins at Villa because they will start a good run of fixtures. I also like Darwin. I think we talked about it. Liverpool looks good. They also will have good fixtures. Darwin seems to be a bit more secure, even though there is a rotation risk. I also looked at Antonio from West Ham because he's quite cheap, and I do like what I've seen from West Ham so far. Plus, they have a great fixture this game week against Sheffield. And then, yeah, a Newcastle attacker, as we discussed, could be interesting, either Wilson or Isaac. But again, a bit of a rotation risk. And yeah, so I was wondering if you had any advice for me, if you would have to choose between Watkins and Darwin, basically, who would you go for?
I mean, are you asking in terms of models or in terms of vibes? I can give you two different answers.
You are the model man, so I'm asking in terms of models.
Okay. Actually,
Don't know if you have an answer ready. Otherwise, give me your vibes answer.
Okay. Let me actually check very quickly what the models say in terms of total EV. Okay, yeah, it's like I guessed. So Watkins has more expected value than Darwin. Like over the next 6 game weeks, it's 29.16 for Watkins and 22.66 for Darwin. So almost like 7 EV difference, so more than 1 EV. But I mean, as a Liverpool fan, I hope you go for Darwin. And he's also cheaper, right? He's cheaper than Watkins.
Yeah, that's also the thing. He's
I'm
quite
surprised
affordable.
actually.
Like Watkins is 7.9, and Darwin is I think 7.2. No, 7.4. So,
as your rival, I would appreciate if you go for the lower EV player. But I mean, if you go for Darwin and if he gets lots of points, then I can, claim that, I helped you with that pick.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't bring more points than Watkins, then I will be happy because I have a better chance of beating you.
Yeah, indeed.
Game week competition.
Well, I'll tell you on Saturday. Let's see.
Okay, you will probably text me your decision.
Well, and the other thing I think everybody is probably also looking at is Saka because he limped off in the last game, and Arteta mentioned that he didn't train yet. So I think everybody's a bit worried about that, and we'll probably be listening to Arteta's press conference on Friday. His ownership is 65%, so that's of course significant. And if he is injured, then yeah, I might have to sell him for a -4, but I don't know if I want to do that. So that will be another one to think about for the rest of the week.
Yeah, sounds like a great game week to have 2 free transfers. So you should
be
worried,
well
maybe.
Well done, buddy.
No, it's all about small wins, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, as last data point for today, let's look at the best captaincy options.
Oh my god, this is such a mess because we have Haaland at the first place with 7.71 point average, and we have Morris with 7.69, so only 0.02 EV is between them. And so we have Drafthound, Hub. Yeah, those two models think that Haaland is the best. And Fantasy Football Fix, Scout, FPL Review, and Mikael Tokvam has Morris in the first place. And FPL team has Kaminski at the first place in terms of captaincy. Or I should say like highest EV for the game week. But even though like more models suggest Morris is higher than Haaland, the difference between the two is small enough that when you take an equal average, Haaland is tiny bit ahead. But
and you as a Morris owner, are you considering to captain him?
So if I captain Morris, it will be a big decision because
Yes.
if he gets more points than Haaland, I have a good chance of at least increasing in ranks because I'm tired of
Of course.
staying in this overall rank. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
ranks are not that important at this point of the season. I know, but it's the good bet against Haaland. And
Yeah.
you know me, like I'm not afraid of going against Haaland. I just cry a little bit after the fact, but
Yeah.
before the game week, I always feel very brave.
Yeah.
I am closer to captaining Morris than I am closer
Okay.
to captaining Haaland. But
Wow.
I mean, maybe I will change my mind after I see, something. Maybe if I look at deeper, if I have a deeper look at the data, maybe I will realize that Morris is actually not that good. Let me go back to Haaland. But yeah, Morris looks like he will be my captain. But
Okay.
I bet you will captain Haaland, so I'm not even going to ask you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have Morris, and I will also not bring him
Even
in.
if you
So
have Morris, like, would you
even
captain
if I
Morris?
had him, I wouldn't captain him. No, I wouldn't. No, because
So
also City play against Wolves. It's pretty good game
yeah,
too.
that's true.
So yeah, but of course, yeah, I wish you good luck if you go for it. It's one of those weeks where you can try. Agree.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, cool, exciting. It will be a nice weekend. And I think for today that covers it. Do you agree, or did you have something else?
No, I think it covers.
Excellent. Okay. Then I think we should just take another look at our mini league again. We now have 265 teams in it. Thanks again for joining. And you can still join if you want to. The code is 0JSDLA. And the current leader is Max Arnim with his team Max Apollo. And he's on 440 points. So that's pretty amazing. And I took a look at his team. His OR is 998. So we have a top 1K member in our mini league. Well done, Max, and keep it up. Number two is Alex Wilmot, a name that we've mentioned before. So he's quite a steady member of our mini league's top three. With his team, Are You Not Entertained? And he's on 429 points. And number three is C. Britnell with the team Crows Control. So that's Crows from Real Madrid. Tony Kroos,
Tony
Crows
Kroos. Yep.
Control, good one. And the team has a total points of 427. So congratulations to the three of you and to all the rest of us. Let's keep challenging those current leaders and keep in mind that we still have 85% of the season to go. So it's not over yet. This was FPL Optimized Podcast, episode number 59. Thanks for listening. And Sertalp, you didn't ask me about my shirt yet.
Oh yeah, you're not wearing a jersey today, but looks like a training jacket.
That's a training jacket, but it's from the Euro 88. It's an iconic.
88.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's the year I was born.
You were, yeah, the
I'm
year
too
you were
young, I
born. You
guess.
see, it makes it even more iconic. But that was
Yes.
the Euro that the Dutch team won, the European Championship.
Oh.
Great goal of Marco van Basten in the final, and this was their training
So did you
jacket.
have this jacket since then?
I still have it since then, and I was surprised when I took it out of the closet earlier today, and it still
Oh my
fits me. So
god.
I must have bought it like oversized back then. But it's still fits, and probably it's worth some money, I think, because it's an original.
Wow, that's
Anyway,
incredible.
just
Yeah,
some
I'm
background
jealous.
information. Yeah, well, that's the story of today. But thanks everyone for listening. Good luck with making your game week 7 decisions, and of course, we hope your arrow will be green. We'll be back with another episode next week. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you'll get notified when the next episode is released. And do follow us on Twitter. Usually we say now called X, but with
No,
Sertalp we just
you can say it. You
we
can
just
say it.
keep saying Twitter. For Sertalp, it's at Sertalp Bilal, and for me, it's at Pelfi BB. And you can also find FPL Optimize now on YouTube. Thanks for listening.
And until next time, stay curious and analytical. Goodbye.
Goodbye.